Council, would you sign in, please? Ms. Hawley?
All councilors present and a quorum has been declared.
Next up, we have voter agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Ms. Heather?
No, sir. No changes.
No changes? Councillor Grego?
With that, I'll make the motion. We approve the agenda as presented.
A second.
We've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the agenda approval? Seeing none, start voting, please. Ms. Hawley?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. We'll move on to citizen comment. Alamosa City Council welcomes your comments. Citizens wishing to speak may obtain and complete a speaker card through the City Clerk at the start of the meeting. I have one card. Is there anyone else who'd like to fill in a card? Mr. Ron Brink. Thank you for being here, Mr. Brink. State your name and address if you wish, please, for the record.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. My name is Ron Brink. I live in rural Alamosa County. I just want to say a few words about the election. Congratulations to the winners and those of you that did not win or those that did not win. I know that it takes some real fortitude to step up and run. We know you have dedication, you care about the community, as everybody that wants to serve does. So thank you, and thank you, and thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Brink. Appreciate your comments. Move on to ceremonial items. Tonight we have the introduction of the new police department officers. Chief, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. We're here again tonight to introduce to you 4 new officers. Just like all the other officers, they have completed their training program of 14 weeks, which is, I think, in their opinion, is pretty long and hard. But they survived, and now they're out on the street themselves, so we're here to introduce them to you. Tonight we're introduced to you Daniel Northrup. He is the officer that we hired with the partnership with Trinidad State Junior College. So he's the one who filled that position. He's going to be working at Trinidad State as a full-time officer, as a school resource officer there, and you all have been briefed as that process progressed throughout the year. So Daniel's the one that we hired for that. Then we have Evan Lopez, and each of these officers will come up and introduce themselves to you, tell them a little bit about their history. But Evan came to us from Monte Vista. He's a 16-year officer from Monte Vista, so that was a great addition to our staff as well. Ethan Haga, he comes to us actually from our academy. So he's one of those that we were able to pick up from the academy. We talked about those partnerships that we have with the academy and Trinidad State in that manner as well. And last but not least was Brandon Birch. We were able to pick him up. He was a year officer, went to our academy, worked for Alamosa County. Sheriff Jackson trained him over there for a year, and then he came over to us. So I'll let them talk about themselves and introduce themselves to you.
How you doing? My name is Daniel Northrup. I'm originally from Salt Lake City, Utah. My wife is from the Valley. That's what brought us back here, so she'd be closer to her parents. I went through the academy at Trinidad State. Before that, I was served in the Marine Corps for 20 years, and I'm happy to be in this community and to do my part for the community. Thanks.
Thank you, Daniel.
Any questions?
Any questions, Council? Is your family here?
No.
No. Thank you.
No questions, but a couple comments.
Okay.
Maybe I do have about 20 questions, even though we have a big crowd here. No, I just want to welcome you to the family. You're coming into a group of guys that are quite professional. We've put a lot of education and training into our police officers and the chief. The people that he's chosen to bring as a team is quite extraordinary. So welcome to the family. Welcome to our city.
Thank you.
Councillor Hensley?
And I just want to add, so welcome, but also, since we're so close to Veterans Day, thank you very much for your service as well. That's really commendable and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Council. I'm Evan Lopez, born and raised here in the San Luis Valley. I went to school in Monte Vista. Been in the Valley for 38 years. I got my family here in Monte Vista. I started my career off in 2001 in Monte Vista. I served 16 years there, where I moved up through the ranks of corporal sergeant, and then at the end I was chief for a short period. Had the chance to come over here to Alamosa. I'm excited to be here. Good group of guys, known a lot of them for quite some time, and extremely excited to be here. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Please, Councillor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. I am really excited that we were able to keep you in the Valley and that you have been able to serve. I know Monte Vista is an easy place, and neither is Alamosa sometimes. So thank you for your service, and thank you for joining our team.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Councillor Riego.
Officer Lopez, do you speak Spanish?
I do.
Yeah. So that's a big plus for us.
Yes.
You know, and maybe some of these guys that don't speak, maybe you could start classes, start showing some of you how to speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is your family present?
I'm not sure. I got my whole family over here. Yeah.
Would you like to introduce them, please?
What's that?
Would you like to introduce them?
I'm not sure if they're here or not yet.
Okay. Well, thank you then.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
My name is Ethan Haga. I was born in Covina, California, but more or less raised in Gunnison. Moved to the Valley in January of 2016 to attend the academy here. Graduated that and put all my effort into getting on with Alamosa Police. I'm really glad that I got on here because the people that I'm surrounded by really push me to be the best officer that I can be, and the teamwork is really amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Councillor Hensley.
I guess our connection will be, I'm from Northern California, but I did live in Azusa and Arcadia for quite some time, which is very close, obviously, to Covina.
It is.
So, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Is your family present?
They are.
Would you like to introduce them to us, please?
It's my dad, Roger, my mom, Elizabeth, and my girlfriend, Brianna.
Welcome. Councillor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. I had the pleasure of meeting them earlier when I was going around, and they are very, very proud of you, as are we. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Council. I'm Officer Brandon Birch. I'm a Valley boy, born and raised here. A lot of people in here know who I am. Extremely nervous tonight. I got a special speech set up that I'm going to give, if it's all right with you guys. It won't take long, I promise. I'm nervous enough that it's going to read out just fine. I'm not like Ty, I can't remember speeches. I gotta write them down. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you, friends and family, and everyone here tonight, giving myself and the other new officers support as we begin our new careers. I wanted to touch briefly on something which I believe every officer in this room tonight will understand and respect. This is one of the best careers and also one of the hardest careers, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But it wasn't an easy path to get to. For example, I spent 2 years in college to better my chances of getting hired as a law enforcement official while working a full-time position in a corrections facility, which meant late nights at school as well as hundreds of hours of overtime working in the jail. After my degree was completed, it was time to take the next step and final step to become a law enforcement official. This meant 9 more long months in the police academy. Myself and many other officers in this room tonight had to endure this. working a full-time job and getting off late just to change and go straight to class. This meant little to no time with family, friends, and unfortunately my girlfriend. Once becoming a state certified, I went through a total of 3 FTO programs, one in the jail, one at the Alamosa County Patrol Division, and my final and hardest program here at the Alamosa Police Department. These programs were all 3 to 4 month programs which consisted of training, learning, and making a lot of mistakes, and way too much overtime and late nights to even explain. I had to sacrifice holidays, birthdays, family events, and many other things we all take for granted on a daily basis. It took me a total of 4 years to accomplish what I've wanted to do since I was a young child. But not a single officer in this room tonight would ever be able to complete the task of becoming a police officer and maintaining your sanity without somebody by your side. I've been blessed to have a wonderful woman by my side for the past 7 years. She has been with me through every step of becoming a police officer. She has spent many nights alone, many holidays alone, and many other events alone. She has been with me through dark moments in the career as well as my brightest moments. She has had to sacrifice numerous things to be in a relationship with an officer. With that being said, I'm honored and blessed to have an amazing, beautiful woman by my side. I hope she will stick by my side for a very long time. I want everyone in this room tonight to meet the woman who made me the man I am today. If you're in this room and you don't know me, just know this: I love this girl with all my heart, and I'm blessed to have her. Miranda, will you come up here, please?
Wow.
Thank you, guys.
Very good. Councillor Stefano.
I just want to thank you and congratulate you for joining the police department. I think we got a great department going on right now.
I love it.
And what a wonderful thing you just did, man. That's awesome. Congratulations to all your service, all you guys. Chief, you really got it going on, a great crew. Congratulations.
Thanks, sir.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Brandon, even I would have been nervous if you give that speech, but
It was rough, man.
great job, great job. And I would like to welcome all of you new officers to the family of Alamosa, and the chief has done a great job along with the rest of the team and staff and everyone. And we're really looking forward to you all doing a great job in the community. Just always remember to be true to yourself and treat people with dignity, decency, and respect, and you'll never go wrong.
Definitely.
Best wishes to you all.
Thank you.
Councillor Hensley.
Well, thank you for sharing that special moment with us. It'll be something we'll always remember. Also, to all 4 of you, welcome aboard. I know I'm proud to be in Alamosa. I'm proud to have such a force that works with us in the community. And also, it is awesome to see so many of you here to support the 4 new officers. And that just shows, again, that strong unit. So I have to tell you this, the whole picture is just fantastic. And I, for one, am very proud to be part of this.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good. Chief, before you go running off, I'd also like to thank you and welcome to the new officers. You're in good company, gentlemen, and just having someone say yes to you to a lifetime of commitment is exceptional. I've been married for 46 years to the same woman, and may you have that longevity in your life as well and have that support that is so needed, because when you go out that door, you never know what you might face. But remember this, There are a lot of people in this community that support you and honor what you do. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
And thank you, gentlemen. Very good. We'll give the people a minute or so to exit, and then we'll move on to the next ceremonial item. So our next ceremonial item is the Artscape 2017 People's Choice Award. Ms. Heather?
Thank you, Mayor. As council is aware, the 2017 was our first annual public art in the downtown area program. And as part of that program, we did have a People's Choice Award where for about 2 months online and some specific locations, the public could vote on the 17 pieces that they felt were their favorite pieces. For that process, we received, let me look at my notes real fast, a total of 75 votes, and of that 75 votes, 43 of them were for the piece we are honoring today. And I do have to say that getting to know Kasha and Kyle, if you guys want to start making your way to the front with your new addition, has been actually an extreme pleasure. They are new to Alamosa, and they jumped in and asked how they could be involved, how they could contribute to our community. They wanted to connect with Alamosa, and so we're just so excited to, one, have them in our community, but then also they're volunteers on our art committee, and they are the artist for this piece that was selected for the People's Choice. And I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but I will turn that over to you guys if you want to talk about the inspiration behind the piece, and then we can have council come down and do the presentation of the plaque and check.
Sure. Well, Kasha can say her name first of all.
I'm Kasia Polkowska.
And I'm Kyle Kniff.
No, the name of the piece.
That's right. This is baby Ethan. He's 3 weeks old. And we haven't had much sleep the last couple of days, so we're going a little slow. But I'll try to speak, and I hope I don't mix anything up too much. But thank you, Heather. And we just want to say that we're so excited and honored to have been chosen for the first annual Artscape People's Choice Award. And we want to thank everybody that voted, that took the time to vote, and especially those that voted for us, obviously. Very excited about that, too. And we want to thank all of the people that took the time out of their day, all the volunteers that helped out with this program, because it couldn't have happened without them. And especially Heather Brooks and Jolene Webb really stand out as the all-stars for this program, did an amazing job, and I think the turnout for everything was incredible. And we're really excited to see this program grow. The sculpture?
Oh.
Say it.
Okay, so the name of our sculpture is Johanna Mai, and that means Navajo for sunny, bright flower. And when we moved to this area, we did a little research about the history of the land. And being that we were working on the sculpture here in Alamosa, we wanted the piece to be connected to the landscape. So we researched the language, and we found an appropriate name for the very bright and colorful sculpture that happens to have a flower on her belly. And then the sculpture is a matryoshka doll, which originates in Eastern Europe, where I'm from. And it has a nostalgic quality for a lot of people, not just Polish people and all the other Eastern European cultures. Everybody seems to have a story that, or most people seem to have a story that is attached to one of these stacking dolls. And then furthermore, we kind of looked at the area, and we noticed how sunny and bright it is here. So we chose the yellow color as one of the predominant colors for the piece. And then the other color that we focused on was the bright blue skies that we are blessed with here every day, almost every day, especially in the winter, which we love. So we are so happy to see that everybody, most people chose our sculpture. And again, we'd like to thank everybody who voted, and it's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here, I'm going to move this real fast. Is that You're in the front. Oh, you're short.
Council, do you have any comments? Councillor Griego?
I'll start. I just wanted to thank him for the piece of art that they've put there on that corner. And also the one catty corner, the wall one, that really kind of blends right off to each other. So that took a lot of people coming together to put that together. And boy, it looks very beautiful in that same area. So thank you both very much.
Councillor Reveal.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, just want to reiterate that. Thank you for that piece. We're so used to, in this part of the world, the Spanish influence. It's good to see an Eastern European artwork. It's culture, it's diversity, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. I also wanted to say you guys just moved here and jumped in and have done some great things and volunteering, and thank you for the commitment you have to Alamosa. We're so lucky to have you, and so thank you for everything that you're doing and will continue to do, and congratulations on your little baby. Thank you.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. Congratulations on your new baby, Ethan. And I just want you all to know that I've been talking with a lot of people around town, and they talk about that piece specifically about how much beauty it has added to our city. And I'm just so excited, kind of like Councillor Daniel said, you just came in and you jumped in and you embraced the community, and that's really good. And we're looking forward to seeing many more beautiful works of art from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Hensley.
I'd like to add to what my colleagues have said. I also think that both of you bring a beauty to our city as well and our community. And in a way, I feel like the art piece is also a reflection of both of you, in the sense that you have come in here and embraced our community and are truly part of it. And I really thank you for adding beauty to our community as well, both you and Ethan.
Thank you.
Okay, good, thank you very much. One of the things that I enjoy about the art piece more than anything else is the ability to come up to it and put your hands on it and touch it and realize that these are all individual pieces that were put together in a great mosaic. it's just a beautiful piece, and I go to the bank all the time, and every time I see it, I've got to stop and touch it. And I think that's what really satisfies the need in me and the hope that artwork like yours continues. So thank you very much for your contribution to our small city, and welcome to the baby. Born in Alamosa?
Yes.
Welcome. Thank you again.
Thank you all so much. We must abandon you all now. We have to go feed the baby. Thank you again, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you. We'll move on to consent calendar A. Consent calendar A allows multiple actions with one motion. Consent calendar A contains routine items which have been recommended for action by staff or advisory boards. Council may remove a consent calendar item for separate consideration. We have 2 items this evening. We have the approval of the minutes for the meeting of November the 1st, 2017, as well as receiving the October 2017 monthly reports.
Mayor, I move that we approve consent calendar A.
I second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on consent calendar A? Seeing none, start voting, please. Ms. Hawley?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. We'll move on to regular business, presentations from outside agencies. We have a presentations from Amara Rowelson, Hope for Kids Like Me. Sheriff Jackson?
Thank you.
Thank you for honoring us with your presence.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So Ollie said it was okay for me to introduce Amara, and I thought she would be nervous, but she's not. She's 14 years old. She's very confident. Let me kind of start by, so within the last several years, we've developed these issues in our jail with opioid dependent pregnant mothers. And through our ministry and Dr. Troy and Vicki White and now Amara, we started to have to deal with us. What are we going to do? These pregnant mothers come in, they're heroin addicts, and we didn't want to detox the fetus. So through their help, we know that they've saved numerous lives by doing that. So I got to know them, and I started reading Amara's her articles in a paper. And if you haven't read one, she's done over 38 articles. I don't know how many. How many? 75 articles she's written on for Hope for Kids Like Me, and she has touched so many people. It's just amazing. So I thought she'd be nervous, but then I got thinking about she's been in my jail. She has interviewed 16 of my female inmates. They're pretty hardcore. They're tough guys. She went in there boldly and interviewed them and talked to them about kids like me, and it's amazing. So that's enough. I just wanted to introduce and say how important she is to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome.
Hi. Sorry. The reason why I wanted to present here is because when I first arrived in Alamosa, I believe it was either in 2012 or so, I can't remember. And my mother decided to move here because, number one, she was running from the cops, and number two, they were starting to legalize marijuana. And her fiance, who she was using to get money, used to abuse me. And one time it was in Monte Vista, and one time he took his hands on my neck and threw my head against a wall because I had spilled orange juice on a $1,000 sleeping bag. And I slept in it because I was so cold and they wouldn't give us a bed. I know it wasn't $1,000. And it was a terrifying experience for me. And there are so many other children who are going through this and don't have help and go through a part of their lives thinking that it's their fault that their mom or dad is on drugs. And I remember one time my mother told me she wished I was never born and called me a bitch. And I decided one day that I wanted to kill myself because I thought it was my fault. So I would think of doing suicide, and when I washed the dishes, I saw these huge knives and would slowly try, maybe I was thinking about it. And I was 7 at the time, very young. And when we moved here, I came to the Alamosa Elementary School, and this was, I believe, my 16th school that was documented, and I know there were so many more. I can't really remember. And I was blessed with Alicia Romero, and at the time, after social services came into my life, they were noticing that my mom was a druggie, and she wrote out, once my grandma came back, she wrote out a paper saying that I was doing good with my grades, and she noticed a tremendous rise from when I was with my mother to when I was with my grandmother. And after I graduated into the 5th grade, it was a living hell. I'll tell you this, in the school systems, teachers are starting to bully kids more than kids bully kids. I'm not going to say her name, but I believe she's still in the school. And she would say really mean things to me, and once I got in the 6th grade, it got so much worse. And it was the 6th grade math teacher. And I was working on a problem. Now, keep in mind, we told her this many times, that since my mother did drugs and alcohol when she had me, the spatial area of my brain is affected. And so if someone comes up to me with a math problem, it's going to take some time to solve it for me. And it wasn't my fault, but she was basically making it my fault. And one time she walked up to my desk, took my paper, went up to the whiteboard and wrote down my answer and said, "Now, who would do this?" And it was the most devastating thing for me. I couldn't believe it. I went home crying, and I was thinking about doing suicide. And there was one thing I forgot to mention, and that I was in the 5th grade band, and they had kicked me out when I was in 6th grade because my grades were bad. I just wanted to say that you don't do that to a child. I don't think you should do that. That's cruel. And that was the only thing in my life that was keeping me alive. And when they had kicked me out, I felt like, again, killing myself. And it was an awful experience. And then my grandma, she decided to take me out of public school, and she put me in private school, which was a Christian school. And that, at first, was like heaven for me. And then they started showing their true colors. And the teacher barely taught the kids there, and I was being bullied by another kid. And I felt like killing myself again, and I was 12 at the time. And they didn't really do anything, and so my grandma decided to take me out of that situation again. And then they decided to fire the teacher after he gave their children bad grades. Wow. But after that happened, I created a little series called My World. The reason why it's called that is because when someone else says it, it's not just my world, it's their world too. And I have many different characters. It's 100, I think, even more than that. And there's this one character named Christopher who is a wind-up doll. And he's a villain, and he's a broken toy. And the reason why he's that way, he's life-size. And the reason why he's that way is because that's how I felt when I was with my mother. I don't even like calling her my mother anymore. I just call her Sarah now. And I remember I was also felt broken when she brought men into the house. There were so many men, I can't even count. And sometimes to the point where I questioned if my father was my real father. And it was terrifying. And there was this one guy when I was younger. His name was Andrew Thomas, which is my little sister. I have a little sister. I'm sorry, I forgot because she's not here with us anymore that I forget that I have a little sister. And her name is Ava, but back to her father. He's my stepfather, or was in this case. And he has her now. And this was back in 2013, where again, I felt like killing myself. Because the judge, when in the court system, you have to, if the biological parent says they want the kid, then you have to give it to them. And it was an awful experience for me. It was terrifying. And the stepfather, her dad, was awful to me. And I told them many times before, don't let her go with him. He abused me. He told me never to cry. Big girls don't cry. And it enveloped in my head so much that I don't cry anymore. My ankle, my left ankle, I was going down the stairs and I jumped down the stairs and my ankle popped right in time when I fell down on the ground. I wailed out in pain and first didn't cry. I told myself, Amara, don't cry. And that was because what he said. And I'm also unsettled by the color purple because he used to hit me with a purple paddle. And I like the color, but because he hit me so much with the purple paddle, it's unsettling. And my arms, I like trying to one-up people sometimes when they're picking something up, because when I was younger, he would have me place books. If I didn't even get a correct answer on a paper that was homework, I would have to have my hands laid out like this for an hour or so, or longer. And if it fell down, start all over. And it was an awful experience for me. And not one time did a school come up to me and say, Amara, are you okay? I never had that, ever, ever. No one came up to me and said, Amara, are you okay? You know, what's going on? Nothing, nothing. And this is why this issue is important to me. Children all the time are abused because they have drug addict parents that are so far up their you-know-whats, so high that they don't even know what they're doing. I saw my mother naked one time. She thought she thought that toilet paper, we didn't have enough, and this was in Monte Vista. And she thought we didn't have enough, and she was naked, and she thought she had her keys, and she went into the bed thinking that she was going into the car and passed out. Children go through so much more than what I have been through. Children are the next generation, and then they become like their parents. I've heard stories about children my age or even younger doing crimes, and it's not their fault, but they're being accused that it is their fault. But it's because they've been raised in a situation thinking that their parents, what they're doing is okay. I remember when I saw my mother doing drugs or stuff that should have never been seen by a child. I've seen so much more, and my brain's kind of forgotten some of them. I can tell you this though, I did see my mother having sex with another man. That's how much a kid will see. That's why I wanted to say that. But back to what I was saying is, children, there are other children that see so much more than what I have seen. And this is why this issue is important to me, because we need to protect our youth. We need to get a treatment system. I remember they have so much treatment stuff for drug addicts and get help and for free or something like that. But do they have anything for the children? No, they do not. And they end up spewing money from the families who do want to take care of these children. And then in the end, you go in so many circles and then nothing happens. I remember with social services, there were these people that were like, oh, we'll help you, blah, 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 and then ended up taking my sister away. Because the biological dad asked for her. When my grandma was the one, we were the ones that needed to have her because we were the ones that took care of her. And what is he doing right now? Abusing her. She's skinny right now. Very, very skinny. Nothing like she was. I have pictures. I have my backpack that has photo albums of when we had her to when he's had her. So my question is for many people, like the judges, why is this even a thing? Why is this in the law if the biological dad or mom wants the kid and they know that shouldn't be? Because there was a social services woman, this is not my story, but it was someone else, just to prove my point. There was a little baby, and then they knew that the father was doing drugs. But since nobody wanted to take care of the baby, they decided to give the baby back to the dad, knowing that he did drugs. And that was her first case, and she quit. So that's why I want to know why this is a law and why this is a thing and why the school systems take children out of passionate things. I was passionate about the trumpet. I got back to it earlier, and after some lessons and everything, I decided to quit because I don't have a passion for it anymore. But back then I did. And then they killed it off. And it felt like they were killing me. And my grandma would go up to the principal and everything and ask him, we need to do something about this teacher. And, oh yeah, we will, okay. Nothing happened. I think she's still there. I think she's still there. And I'm not sure, but I think she's still there. And it was an awful situation for me. I got abused by teachers emotionally, abused by my mother emotionally, abused by her so-called fiance emotionally. And I want to know why nobody helped me. So that's why I want to help kids like me. Thank you.
Amara?
Oh, so you stay up there, please.
Sorry.
Councillor Stefano.
I just want to tell you, at your age, you've been through hell and back. I admire you for what you're doing. I have read a lot of your stories in the paper, and it boggles my mind how many people can do this to children. And it happens every day in our own community with people who are addicted to heroin right now, drugs. It's a horrible situation that kids get in because kids are ignored. They take the food money, they spend their rent money to get the drugs, and it really chaps my hide. And I just want to tell you how much I admire you because from my understanding, you're really in tune with Jesus. Is that correct?
There are some things that I wouldn't say are exactly that I sometimes do, but yes, I would say so.
I admire you for that. You got a lot of guts to stand up for what you believe in, and that's what I admire about you. And I just want to tell you to keep it up, and things will change if more people get educated on what's going on with children, like you come in here tonight. It's an awesome thing to me to see you do this. And I just congratulate you and keep up the good work. You're doing a heck of a job.
Thank you.
Because a lot of people are reading your stories.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. Amara, I have so much respect for you. So I do have to tell you, big girls do cry. And I hope someday that you're able to do that too. I want to say, sorry, that the fact that you thought about killing yourself so many times, I am so thankful that you didn't.
And other kids need to hear your story about that, okay? We need to have more access for them to be able to know who they can talk to, who's safe. There are adults who will talk about suicide, and there are people who care and want to have those conversations, because everyone needs a place to talk about those feelings. And I'm so thankful that you didn't go through with that with the knife, and that you are able to be strong and here today. So thank you for that. And I can't stick up for the systems that we have, because I know sometimes they don't work, but I do honestly believe, and I need you to hear this, that people go into those jobs for all the right reasons.
Some do.
Some do.
Some do.
I would agree with that, okay. But they are many times trying so hard, and the things that get in the way are the things that some of us are still working hard to change. And your story is going to help change those things. And I know it was hard, and I'm so sorry that you experienced those things, but I'm so thankful you're as strong as you are to be able to help other kids like you. So thank you so much for the work you're doing, and the work I know you're going to continue to do. I appreciate it so much.
Councillor Hensley.
Thank you so much for everything you do. When I met you earlier and I first talked to you and then realized that you were who you are, and I read your stories. I know a lot of people who have read your stories. You are a brave person, and you've taken so much hurt and so many things, and you've made it such a positive thing that a lot of people couldn't do that, and I commend you for that. And what you've really done is you've touched a lot of lives, whether it's somebody who has drug abuse in their life personally, whether it's somebody from the outside looking in, the full circle, whether it's grandparents, parents, children, people going through it themselves. You touch in a way because of what you say, and it's coming from an innocence and a true reality. And what you're going through, you're dealing with things that obviously nobody at your age should, and I'm really sorry that you have to go through that, but at the same time, thank you so much. I know most people, as you know, drug addiction has touched almost everybody, whether it's a family member, a friend, a student, whatever it might be, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate everything you've done. I do enjoy reading your articles, and I know they touch a lot of people, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. Amara, I am very sorry that you've had to go through the things that you've gone through. It takes a lot of courage to come up here and open up and tell your story to people. I want you to know that you have a precious life, and I'm glad that you chose life over death. And remember that you have greatness within you, Amara, and your story and you are going to provide hope to so many kids just like you, not only in Alamosa, not only in the San Luis Valley, but throughout the world. So keep moving forward and keep making positive decisions, okay? Thank you.
Councillor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. I have one more thing. Ruth, I know you're writing this down, and so I would like for the Colorado crisis line to be mentioned, if you could. I'm not going to force you to, but it is 1-844-493-8255, or people can text TALK, T-A-L-K, to 38255.
Myra,
That's for any crisis.
Very good. Myra, thank you. And I too admire, your fortitude and forbearance. Your desire to survive and thrive honors you, and your desire to get the word out in our community. Reaching out motivates others to know that there is hope for them, because you give them that hope, and we thank you for being here this evening. Thank you. We'll move on to business brought forward by city staff. We have a Public Works. We've got a request of Leland Romero for a permitted use by special review to allow a private school use group ICP-1 in a residential medium zone. Thank you, sir.
This is my first time before you. Wow, how do you follow that? As the mayor said, this is a request for a permitted use by special review in a residential medium district. And this is a proposed school that replaces a school use. This occurs in the building that's the old Head Start building, which was formerly school and became daycare, and now is being proposed as a school use again. The new tenant is a group called Rite of Passage, which offers educational programs and services to troubled and at-risk youth and vulnerable youth, and foster care family programs. The operation is very similar to a regular school in that it has regular working hours of 7:30 in the morning until 4, weekends off, and regular school holidays. They also include basic teaching strategies for students ranging in age from 7 to 16 and conform to the national teaching standards. As I said, the building has been historically used as a school facility under the Head Start program, and since the closing of the old school has had uses such as daycare. Our records do not indicate that the old Head Start program had a special review under our regulations at that time. When it ceased to operate, it became a non-conforming, or would have become a non-conforming use. But with the interim uses and the proposed school coming in, we had to upgrade based on our current regulations, our current ordinances. And, excuse me, I'm sorry. The new application must be reviewed under these conditions, and the primary concern that staff had that the school has, or school use had in that neighborhood, is that it didn't comply with our off-street parking standards. And the Planning Commission was, or I'm sorry, that previous presentation choked me up and I'm having trouble recouping myself.
You're among friends.
The program currently houses or schools 22 students in their existing program at the Western Union, Western Auto site. And based on Department of Health standards and Department of Education standards, the existing school at this site could house up to 62 students. With the I'm sorry again. The new application I'm sorry. I'm having a meltdown.
You're doing fine. Would you like to take a minute, or would you like to take a minute? And
I have never done this in a public presentation. Anyway, since the historic use was a school on this site,
okay,
and it occurred in this neighborhood, and the Planning Commission felt that the when they heard the application that a traditional use of the school or a new use of the school could be considered, but they wanted to limit the number of students. The program proposed by Mr. Romero could expand up to, they currently house 22 students. They could expand up to 10 to 12 more for a total of 22 to 24 students. And the Planning Commission believed that with a limitation on the number of students, that they could forward a recommendation of approval to you for the use by special review with a limitation of 22 students.
Very good. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
That's all right. We're good.
So, Mayor, I think this is something when we first received it, with it being in a residential area, Dan had noted maybe some concerns with this use, and that's why it does require, because of the zoning, the special review to allow a private school. But I know once they visited the site and looked at the historical use of what that building has been is when staff became comfortable with the plan, and I think that probably weighed heavily with the Planning Commission. And then also, the discussion, if you read the minutes at the Planning Commission meeting, there was discussion with the commission and the applicant in regards to, while the facility's large enough to house, I believe, 62 students, neither the applicant nor Planning Commission was comfortable with that, primarily because of the parking impacts on the neighborhood. But as Dan's explained, the hours and all of that are consistent with school, and the Planning Commission and staff do recommend approval with the limitation of 22 parking spots.
Okay. Thank you, Heather. Our
limit of 22 students, not spots, sorry.
Very, very good. All right, Councillor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for sharing with us, and don't worry about anything, so it's fine. I cried up here, and so that's, I think, works. I did want to say that rite of passage, the people who are applying to be able to do this school provides a great and needed service to our community, and because this use has been used like that, or this property has been used like this in the past, I feel like this is very consistent with how we've used that block, and this is going to be a much better place for them than where they're currently at, and so I feel really good about offering this to students as well. So I appreciate the time staff went to look and you checked it out, so thank you for making sure we were doing, or we were recommending the right thing.
Councillor Griego.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Yeah. This school is in my district, and since I was born and raised here, and it's always been a school, and I think even prior to that, I think it was even a church back there. So the use is and I understand when you mean when you have to update the policies and stuff. So I think to put something in a vacant building, I'm surprised that it hasn't been vandalized or not, but to put something in a vacant building, a use, and to hire people and to take care of kids in education, I think it's a positive thing. So thank you, Dan.
Councillor Reveal.
Thank you, Mayor. Dan, thank you for the presentation. Council, there's a need in our city, and this will fill a need. So for me, this is a no-brainer, and I appreciate Mr. Romero and the group for working together to get this done, and it needs to be done.
Thank you. Councillor Stefano.
I think it's a great idea myself. Also, is it going to be limited to 22 students or at this point, or?
So the recommendation from staff is that you approve the permitted use by special review with the limitation that it's limited to 22 students. It is council prerogative if you want to do that recommendation from staff and Planning Commission, or if you want to do something different.
Thank you.
They currently have 12 students, and that would allow them to grow to 22 students.
Thank you, Dan. You can speak in the microphone when you know.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Councillor, who was next? I think it was Councillor Hensley.
I had a question. If you were going to motion, I had a question.
I was going to ask a question. Okay. So my question is, if we go ahead and approve the 22, and at another point it looks like it's growing, can they come back and then ask to have it be a higher amount?
Yes, they can. And at that point, we would probably do, look at the neighborhood, talk to the neighbors, those types of things to see how the 22 has impacted. But yes, they could come and request a higher number at a different time. Is that correct, Pat?
Good. Good. Yeah. And thank you, Dan. It's amazing how sometimes we lose our train of thought, because it happens to me all the time. Anyway,
I just couldn't recover from that.
I visited with our city manager specific to the number of 22 and said, well, how can that be monitored? And then I thought, well, the school can always give us a running count of the number of people that are there, probably on a semester basis or whatever. I'm sure that would be easy to accomplish. And later on, if more students, if they wish more students to attend, I don't, that would be council's prerogative to take a look at that and visit with the neighbors, so on and so forth. I've known Mr. Romero as a top-notch educator, and he was a previous city council person, a very trustworthy individual, and I would have no qualms at all in granting this permitted use by special review myself. Councillor Reveal.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that we approve the request as presented, as per the recommendation of the Planning Commission, but limit the number of students who may attend the school to the planned 22 students.
I second.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor, I had a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
We have the applicants here. I don't know if we didn't give them an opportunity if they wanted to say something
We've got a motion on the
We've
got a motion on the floor.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor Grego. We've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the application? Seeing none, start voting, please. Ms. Hawley?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Mr. Romero and staff. Appreciate your presence.
Thank you, Council.
We'll now move on to City Clerk, Municipal Court. We've got two issues. Tonight we've got the appointment of Kevin Reveal to the Tree Board and the discussion and direction regarding process and timeline to fill the at-large vacancy.
Okay, so first item, appointing Kevin Reveal to the Tree Board. He recently applied to serve on this board back in October. You guys interviewed him October 18th. There was a delay in appointing him because he was applying for a city position, but there's nothing that prevents the city employee from serving on a board. So if you appoint him into this vacancy, there is one vacancy left on this board. That term expires June 1st of 2021.
Thank you, Ms. Hawley. Councilor Reveal.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we appoint Kevin Reveal to the Tree Board.
Councilor Daniel.
Okay, I second.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Start voting, please. Ms. Hawley?
The motion carried unanimously.
We'll move on now to discussion and direction regarding the process and timeline to fill the at-large vacancy.
Okay. So as you know, the new council will get seated at the December 6th meeting. Ty will be sworn in as mayor. That will leave his current position, which is an at-large vacancy, that'll become vacant. Charter directs that council make appointment to fill any vacancies that occur. However, it does not specify how the recruitment or appointment process is to happen. Vacancies have occurred in the past, separate from election, and the process has been that council has solicited letters of interest, interviewed those persons, and made an appointment by ballot at a regular meeting. Currently, there are a few candidates that there are a few people who have mentioned they are interested. I'm sure there'll be more possibly, so there are multiple candidates interested in the seat. And it'd be best for you guys to determine the process you want to see occur and direct staff as to what you want to do, if you want to begin advertising or.
Ms. Hawley, what kind of a timeline are we looking at this point in time? Have you advertised or when do you plan to advertise?
That's what you need to direct me to do if you guys want to start advertising.
And also, you may not feel comfortable, given that there's going to be changes, discussing the whole process, but if you think there's a chance that council's going to want to make sure that there is some sort of advertisement, we wanted to get that direction tonight so we don't lose 3 weeks until the next meeting. And so that's the very definitive one, but if you also want to get into the discussion of the rest of the process, that's your discretion as well.
Absolutely. You've given us some issues here to look at, whether we want to actively recruit. What does our charter say as far as that goes? It doesn't say anything specific.
All it says is that you appoint someone to fill that vacancy until the next election.
Councillor Reveal?
Thank you, Mayor. So we had this process 4 years ago when Mr. Lucero won the mayor's seat and his position came open, and we obviously appointed Mr. Coleman to that. At that time, I liked the process that we went through, and I would recommend that we do that again, where we send it out in the paper and we get like an advertisement, and then we close it, and then we get with letters of interest, and then I'd like to have an afternoon or a morning of having interviews to get everybody there. Then I'd like to talk to council about it, and then obviously we have to vote. We'd have to vote or choose that person at a public meeting, correct? And 4 years ago, what we did, and I came up with this idea, so I think it's a good idea, and we should do it again. We rank personally who we think best fits the position, 1 through 5, 6, whatever it might be, with our number 1 choice being our main choice, and the person who has the lowest number amongst ourselves wins it or gets it. I'm just throwing it out there. What do you all think, council?
Thank you, Councillor Reveal. Councillor Hensley?
You took me by surprise there. I had to think about what you just said. So that sounds good. I may have a question on that last part, but my question was, so when this happened 4 years ago, what was the timeline of when that person actually got into office? And
so appointment the last time was in November. Last meeting in November. Appointment for the at-large vacancy wasn't until January.
So we're looking at sort of that idea of trying to have a decision by the first meeting in January type thing?
It's completely up to how quickly you guys can move and the schedules. Unfortunately, we do have the holidays, but it's something that if we can go ahead and get an advertisement out, we can maybe have that closed and then look at scheduling the rest of the process following that.
And then one question for you. So on the ranking, so you rank the different candidates and then all those numbers are added up. And so for example, it could be that somebody has, so obviously the lowest number is the person who wins.
Correct.
So if somebody has 3 1s and 2 2s and a 3 versus somebody who has 2 2s, so that's how it's being added up. Okay,
yep.
I just wanted to make sure. So it's not we just vote.
Not an average, but just candidate A got 12, candidate B got 14.
Right.
So we picked the lowest number.
Okay, versus just saying we vote for this person.
That's going to be an opportunity for us to research that and make sure we totally understand that. Or you folks will have to do that.
Yeah, because
Councillor Grego?
I was still a little confused on, I thought if you got more votes, you should win. Listen.
I like it. It's math.
Mathematics is important.
Sure, Pat likes it.
It all adds up in the end, doesn't it, Councillor?
It doesn't matter whether you just add the total number of votes or take the average. I think it comes out the same.
Absolutely.
But it's just math.
Councillor Coleman.
I agree with Councillor Young because it worked because with the numbers, you go with the lower numbers, and then it just actually turned out pretty well for me, but but I think it was fair. He had a great recommendation, and it's a good idea. Thank you, Young.
Very good. So
I guess in regards to a timeline, since we're not asking for much other than a letter of interest, if we could just maybe have a week, 2 week time frame for the close date, the due date, for people to submit it to the city clerk. And then that will allow us to have that in place for then the December 6th, and you guys can finalize the schedule after that. Does that sound appropriate, Holly, as well?
Ms. Holly, what kind of a time frame are you looking at as far as the calendar goes? When do you want to start advertising for this, or when can you?
We can start doing it now.
Okay.
And set it for
Okay.
2 weeks.
Yeah, give the applicants a specific number of days to put in their application, and then after that.
If we do
we'll go
2
from
weeks,
there.
the deadline could be December 1st.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Holly. Councillor Reveal?
Thank you. Then another idea, well, another thing to add to this is I kind of agree with City Manager that we should, with the holidays coming up and with new faces up here and the training that they'll need to get acclimated to the positions, and that I think we should, I would like to have the new person selected and in by that first meeting of January.
Okay.
I think the other is, as you know, we're trying to schedule the retreat. And so while we can't plan around someone's schedule who we don't know might be appointed, if we could at least make sure they're appointed before some of those potential dates, that would be a good goal as well.
Thank you, Heather. And so we've got that on the books. All right. We'll move on to City Manager Legal. We are asked to authorize the City Manager to execute the contract with Advantage Treatment Centers Incorporated, ATC, for pretrial processing, housing, and monitoring of non-violent municipal offenders and post-conviction housing. I will initiate this. I am very uncomfortable with this happening at this point in time. I really believe that there are a couple of counselors, and me included, that really don't know the full specifics of this. I really was hoping that we could have had a work session specific to this, as well as any conflicts of interest that may have or may be present. None of that was made public. And so in that, I am hoping that there would be a work session specific to this before the May 6th, January 6th meeting. That's my feeling. Councillor Reveal.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess a question for Council and more Heather. The first time that we were notified of this potential contract with ATC, was this at the meeting that we had with the Judge Powell up in the fireplace room about 3 weeks ago?
No, sir, and thank you for the question. I was expecting to go with the normal protocol of doing a bit of the background information. Beginning with some of the discussions with the county of the jail overcrowding and the publicity that was surrounding that, we had discussions with council on some of the alternatives that we were looking at. Some of those alternatives we are continuing to look at. Some of it is looking at other jails within the valley if we need to have contracts with them. It was looking at having a contract with the county itself and how that would be structured. And then also we mentioned that we were looking at and having conversations with community corrections on if we could use them specifically instead of the jail. There's several times during staff updates and through the Friday updates that we had referenced the communications that we were having with ATC. Some of it required just some research on their part in regards to the legality, some of the liability insurance coverage. We also needed to look on our side the legality of what the judge can do as far as sentencing and some of those items. And so really it wasn't until the ACLU stuff happened that we had more definitive answers on those questions. So while we had been updating council on the generics of the options we were looking at, we didn't actually have the specifics that this was actually a very viable solution that we were looking at. And we also didn't have, until the ACLU, And it actually had nothing to do with the ACLU, it's just the timing was happenstance. But we didn't know until that point as well what the cost was going to be. And so I think that was something that we had shared with council, was how excited we were with this opportunity, because not only were we going to be able to hopefully eliminate the use of the jail, which is a burden to the county, it creates issues for them. It's a point of contention sometimes between the city and the county, and we're excited to be able to eliminate that. But it's something that would appear to be cheaper in regards to the $63 a day that we're charged, and I think the maximum would be $55 a day through this. But honestly, the most exciting part is that people who would be going through this system would still be able to retain their jobs, their connections with the community. There's less disruption, which hopefully means that they can better correct their behavior and not reoffend. They can stay on Medicaid, which means if they're receiving services, you can't receive those when you're in jail, and it can connect them with some of the other wraparound services. ATC is the only agency in the Valley that has the overnight capacity in regards to this type of contract. As far as bringing to light any potential conflicts, I think if we would have followed protocol, I'm sure Councillor Daniel was ready to express her need to recuse herself from this discussion and vote, and that would be the appropriate time to do it, which is a public manner. And so from a staff perspective, this is something that we've been very transparent about and open, and it's been very exciting, and we see it as a great opportunity.
And City Manager, this potential contract, wasn't this in the kind of the correction plan, the way we can improve our system here that you all presented to us 3 weeks ago with the judge?
Yeah, so this information, yes, council's had this information for over a month. We've discussed it. It was part of the correction plan. Fortunately, for those that maybe had concerns, I didn't receive any questions. In the meetings that we had, I didn't receive any other questions related to it either, leading up to this.
Councillor Reveal.
I had an opportunity to speak to the city manager, because I like the program that's being presented, but I would want it rather to have had maybe some kind of a work session or something to go through, because there's a lot of questions in this contract that like the tiers, are we going to go through one tier, all 4 tiers? The amount that we pay, it talks about that the person has to pay $15 a day. Is that on top of what we pay? Stuff like that, where it's really broken down and you really go through it, and because it is a good program and it is a good answer. We need to find an answer to an alternative to jail, and I think this is the right thing. It also talks about us buying the monitoring, the electric monitoring equipment, stuff like that. See, stuff like that, you go through it, and I just kept on asking myself all these different questions, and I think a work session, and I don't know, is this something that we have to be done? It has to be done by yesterday?
It doesn't have to be done. We just wanted to, we thought it was fairly straightforward. It's something that normally we can field those questions ahead of time for people who are getting these questions in advance. I'm always available for those types of questions. In addition to that's what the point of the meeting is tonight. And so I think those are very great questions, and to give you some answers on that. The $15 is a sliding scale. So if there's a defendant that is truly indigent and cannot afford it, they wouldn't have very much, if anything. It is the ability to pay. And what the individuals involved in the Justice Center will tell you consistently, and we do it for our diversions programs as well, is that if the defendant has a little bit of skin in the game, for lack of a better word, they seem to be more committed to the outcomes and to the process. And so that's what that $15 is. So it would be in addition to what the city's paying, but it's a fairly nominal, and it would be a sliding scale. In regards to the ankle monitors, That's actually something that the city initiated, and ATC is graciously allowing it. So I'm glad I'm able to make sure to clarify on that. Our goal when we met with the judge, and again, all of this is kind of dated before ACLU, was the goal of what we're trying to achieve, or what he was needing to get out of the jail, is that they would be there for their next court appearance, because they weren't showing up, type of stuff. We feel like for those that are at a high risk, if they're reporting there at night and they have an ankle monitor during the day, that's as close to jail as we can get. So that would only be utilized for those that are considered an extreme flight risk. And so it's not as foolproof as being in jail, because clearly you can't leave when you're in jail, but it's as close to that as possible. So that's actually something that's very much recommended by staff, and it's not something that ATC normally does, but they're willing to do that monitoring if we make the one-time purchase of the equipment, and clearly the city would own the equipment, and it would be housed at ATC for as long as the contract's in effect. And I believe you had one more question.
Well, I have several, because you look at Exhibit A, service proposals.
The different categories?
Yeah, I guess it describes what they're going to offer.
So yeah, so they want to be able to be flexible depending on what the client needs are. So some clients may not have very much needs, may not present with very much threat to the community or the flight risk, or they may not need as much wraparound services, so they can be at that lower level and be reporting in at a wider span of time. For those that maybe have been in the system for a very long time, maybe they have the criminal history where they have been more of a flight risk, those types of things, they would get moved up in the aggressive side. There's some that may need more of that kind of wraparound service, and so those are things that the intake they would take a look at. So those are flexibility areas that's going to be entirely dependent on each defendant.
Okay, and like I'm pulling some questions out of Exhibit A, service proposal, and the average client count is from 0 to 10. Mm-hmm. So we would only be able to have 10 people there at one time?
Well, really, we've only been around 3, so we estimated high.
But that's my question.
Yeah. So these are municipal only.
Yeah, right.
So anyone that we pick up that has any other charges related or any other warrants at the other district or the county courts, they would still be going to jail. And that's what kind of our point has been when we've received some of the media on the jail overcrowding, is when you look at municipal only offenders, it's not that high of a number. And so we feel very confident that 10 will be sufficient.
Okay, a walk-away or failure to return will result in removal from the program. So what happens then if
they would go to jail?
They would go to jail?
And so then that's why we need to make sure that once we're done with this, we would need to still have a contract with Alamosa County.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions here.
Councillor Griggle? May I interrupt you?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I believe that's the reason for my wanting a work session specific to this issue. Not only do some of us have questions here, but we are going to have 2 brand new council people that are going to be on board that have very, very little knowledge of what's going to happen, and I think they need to be privy as to what could happen and what will happen, and a work session I think would be ideal for them to become informed as well. And that would probably happen at your January 6th meeting. Just before the meeting, you could have a work session. Just before you vote on this, you could vote on this on the 6th and finalize it. That's my recommendation to council. Councillor Hensley.
Did you want to respond to that first?
Our preference is not to wait till January. We would probably look at the next available time for a work session that hasn't been filled through the municipal judge and some of the other processes that council has going.
I guess, Mike, so 2 things. So first of all, personally, I was very supportive of this. some of the key factors for me, yes, it saves money, but I do think it really helps in our partnership with the county because there is stress at the county level with the jails, the overcrowding, things like that. How do we work together? How do we work as partners? At the same time, I think the real thing that, I don't want to say sold me on it, but made me feel really good about it, is the Medicaid part, because that is a huge issue, because when people are in jail, they don't get the services they need. And so in a sense, any potential progress or progress that might have been started ends there. And so my thought there is to be able to help the people as they're going through this process, and taking a lot of that part of it away, I think is detrimental. So for me, I had a few questions, but overall, and I guess my other part on this is, I feel like, and it may take us a little time, but almost why go to a work session if we can answer these questions now? Because my thought is if we can answer them and then we feel okay with it, then we can go forward, or we then just make our decision from that. So personally, I just don't feel like we need to put off for another work session. We're here, the time is already going, and I'm okay if we have, Charlie, honestly, if you have more questions, I think they're honest questions, and I'm good with them. I'm learning a lot from it. So for me, I think it's okay.
And Councillor Hensley, I think it's a worthwhile project. I really do. I just was hoping that I could have a little bit more information and a work session, and even an executive session if we need to have that, to answer some of the really sensitive questions, I think would be ideal. I mean, and even our city manager said time is not as of the essence at this point in time. I mean, we can wait and look at it, and if we have to have a work session somewhere along the line, how many work sessions have we had this last year? Another one's not going to hurt. And I think it's of vital importance for everybody to be on the same page and informed when it comes to this issue.
I forgot to mention as well, when we were doing the materials in response to the ACL report, since it was very clear that we were bringing a contract for council consideration at the next meeting, our discussion with ACLU, they were interested in that, and when we explained what the contract was, they were actually, I don't want to say excited, but I think they thought it was a very positive step as well in regards to the city. And so they were aware of the contract coming up as well, and were supportive of it.
Councillor Daniel, I want to know if our city attorney will allow your comments at this point.
No.
Not even to recuse myself.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, right. If you're just
that's the only thing, since that hasn't actually been said and it just keeps getting alluded to. I am an employee of Advantage Treatment Centers, and so I will not be participating in this discussion.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. Heather, I have a question. As far as all of the services, because I too, I've been talking with you, and I know other council members have this information, and we've had this information for at least since last Friday. We've been talking about this for well over a month. So that's plenty of time to make a decision and plenty of time to come to a solution. But I have a question for you. The ATC group, is there any other organization that provides similar services here in the San Luis Valley, or is this the only one?
The closest one is our moms, but they do not have the overnight capability. So this is the only service that provides both the monitoring, the wraparound, that kind of case study stuff, or case services, with the overnight. And that's why we chose this, is because we wanted to get it as close to jail as possible. So for those who do present a flight risk because of their history, they have to report in at night, and if it's combined with the ankle monitoring, the chances of them getting very far is very small.
Okay, and I would like to thank you and staff, because time and time again, council gives staff direction and say, we would like for you to move forward in this area, this or that area. And then you all do a great job, and then all of a sudden, sometimes council want to come back and tell you to redo your job again or waste more time when the time is really not needed. From the research that I was able to get from looking through the report, it appears that this option will be cheaper than jail, and it would eliminate the use of the jail for the most part, and help also with the overcrowding, because this facility will be taking care of some of those inmates. It also would allow people to keep their jobs. I think that was another important note that I wrote down, and help them get jobs so that they can pay back restitution. Over and over, as we talk about crime, and you know how I am with crime, I want people to be accountable for their actions. And with this program, it appears that it takes those things under consideration. The other thing I noticed is that it will help people when it comes time for them to get appropriate referrals. We're talking about helping people who may have some addiction issues that may need those referrals to help them with their issues so that they could get better and maybe not return back to jail. And it can help them when they are assessing the treatment needs of those individuals. Because I was in the county jail today. I did a tour. And when I saw the people who were in jail, and they told me almost 90% of those people who are in there because of drugs, I got a chance to talk to some of the inmates today, and some of them said if they could just have some treatment, they probably wouldn't go back again. And I think we're going to have to start looking at ways to get people who are in jail for addiction issues or drug issues some form of treatment. And from what I understand, this facility will be able to help provide some type of referrals or assess those needs. Am I right?
It can definitely do the referrals, and then this is where the Medicaid issue is so critical, because if they're on Medicaid, then they can receive that treatment, while when they're in jail, they don't have that option. And so when you look at treatment for some of these addictions, this makes it much more of a priority and a possibility that does not exist with us using the traditional incarceration.
Okay, and then the final note that I wrote down is that with the case management is a little bit more intensive and tailored towards the client's needs. So each client is going to be unique in their situation. So with the case management, they will be able to address those needs. Am I correct in saying that too?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, thank you. And in regards to council wanting additional work sessions, council has had time to evaluate this information. They have had the opportunity and the time to bring up the questions that they have. All of us have the same amount of time. All of us have the same resources. The days of not doing your homework and waiting till the last minute are over. It's time for us to move forward and not continue to prolong situations when we don't need to prolong them if we just do our homework and then ask the proper people so that we can be informed. That's all I have to say, and I'm not in favor for putting this off for a work session, because I believe we've had ample time to review this and make a decision.
Councillor Coleman, you may be one of the few that has had ample time to ask all the correct questions. Obviously, you have. There are some of us on this council that have not had the questions answered to our satisfaction, and there are 2 new councillors that will be sworn in that have absolutely little or no knowledge of this at all. A work session, I believe, is essential to make sure that they are brought on board knowing what is going to happen to these municipal offenders. I have no questions and no qualms about approving this. I'm just saying people need to be aware of what's going on with the municipal offenders, and that's not only council, that's people out in the community. That's the way I feel about it. Councillor Stefano.
I was just going to say, when this, if this occurs, what impact is this going to have on the judge? Is he going to throw people in jail? Is he going to have the option to do this monitoring thing? Or I'm not understanding that part.
So we've been including the judge as part of these discussions. I think he's very much in support of this, similar to the information that he shared during the report on the ACLU. Is he really just wants more tools. He wants the wider variety of things to be able to do. He realizes that as municipal offenses, we're not talking about the worst type of crimes that are being committed. But yet, we still need to make sure we're getting through to these defendants and those types of things. And so that's what he's been struggling with. If he still, or she, depending on, you know, whatever happens, wants to still put them towards jail, that's an option that they can still have. This allows them to be picked up or handled in an alternative manner. But he was very much in support of that. Holly, is there anything else that I missed in regards to answering that question?
So we are getting a new judge. Mm-hmm. Will he be aware of all this?
Absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, and again, I think this is very much in line with what you're seeing across the country as we're trying to grapple with ways to best get at stopping the crime and recidivism. So it's very similar to when we had the LEAD discussions and that grant that we're going after for that with the wraparound services and the diversion. It's just trying to look at better ways of doing sentencing, better ways of working with people who get themselves into the system in order to stop the crime and get at that in a better method.
Thank you.
Councillor Hensley.
So I actually was going to bring that up, is about the LEAD grant, is that I feel this totally ties in, that we were looking at this LEAD grant and obviously still very hopeful that that'll come through. And this is just, again, another tool. It adds to that idea of support. I agree with Councillor Coleman, that idea that I'm also that person that feels like there does need to be consequences or that idea of having some sort of ramification when you do the crime. But what I really like about this is that it does help, and it is that idea of that they can continue to work and potentially get themselves so they can get more help and things like that. And it is an added tool to the toolbox. I feel like this is sort of in line with all of the things that we've been focused on. I totally feel fine in the sense I personally also would rather not delay this, but I'm also supportive of any of the counselors that if you continue to have questions, let's go ahead and ask them. And I personally, I'm just not seeing any that are something that we have to have in a private session. I think all of them are things that way we can answer them. So I am supportive if not all of us got a chance to read it all the way, you know, prior, or we didn't, you know, whatever that might have been, then let's go ahead and ask those questions, because we do all have all the facts here to continue to ask those questions.
Councillor Reveal.
I guess I read through this whole contract, and it is quite a lengthy contract. And like I said, I did have a lot of questions. And it's not a matter of having or doing homework or not doing homework. I think if everybody's comfortable, I want everybody to be comfortable in going ahead with this contract. There's a potential we might be using 100,000. We set 100,000 aside on the jail, you know. So that's a lot of money. So I want everybody to be comfortable in saying yes, it's a good program, and let's move forward with it. And I don't know what the rush is. If there's some kind of a timeline that we need to have this in place, I would say let's proceed now. But I have a ton, you know, the tiers, there's a menu of tiers, I guess. Is that something where you can choose tier 1 or you can choose tier 2, 3, or 4, you know? Questions like that, you know, is something that you sit down and you take time and you answer all those questions and go through those questions. That's the only thing I have, you know. I'm not to rush into something and get it done just because it has to be done. But if there's no timeline, I think I'd rather slow down a little bit and give everybody the opportunity to go through it and really look at it. And you're right, we get this information, we go through it, and still some of us, you know, I'm one of them. I have, you know, and I didn't have a chance to ask those questions to the city manager because I had my monthly meeting with her, and I did bring up the fact that I was one of the persons that brought up the fact that I think we should have had a work session on this, and so I still think that it doesn't hurt to sit down and go through this thing, and it's a good program. And I think it's going to do the job that we're looking for, but so everybody's comfortable with what we're getting into, and take an extra, you know, I don't know when our, we got a list of work sessions, when's another work session available, city manager? That
We'll take a look at the calendar, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
The judge, I believe the judge is going to be interviewed on Monday, the 29th.
Monday, the 27th.
27th, and the judge will be in place that Wednesday, I believe, or a decision might be made by that Wednesday, and so from that point on, he will be aware of what is available to him in his toolbox when he's finally appointed. He'll probably be aware, or at least begin to be aware of what's going to happen and what council has decided at least is appropriate for him. Councillor Reveal.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to ask this question because it kind of seems to be maybe an elephant in the room. But City Manager, will Councillor Daniel, receive any personal profit from this if this deal goes through?
Not to my knowledge, but I have no idea what her her discussion she may have had. But this is strictly with ATC. My phone calls most recently have been with Doug Carrington.
And was Ms. Daniel, sorry to interrupt you, was Ms. Daniel involved at all in the contract language and coming up with this contract with the city?
I have no idea what was done on their side. When they were failing to send the contract to us from some other people because they were messing up the email addresses, she did forward the contract. But beyond that, I don't have any knowledge of her involvement.
So we could say that her involvement in this is slim to none?
Correct.
Okay, so that makes me feel very good. Again, I mentioned this about an hour ago. We see a need in the community. We got to get the need filled. Let's get this done. Also, I'd like to comment towards the mayor's comment about the 2 new people and them not being up to breast on what this might be. And I respect that comment, but at the same time, then they should be here tonight. They're coming into this position. They should be here tonight. They should know what's going on. And when they get here, they can always talk to city manager and get caught up.
So depending on how it goes tonight, it is something on our list to cover not only more in depth the ACLU, but then also how this ties into it. And then in our discussions of working with the county, I forgot to mention this, on the LEAD grant, we did share with them that this was coming up and that we were looking, and council was in favor of looking at this, and they were excited about that as well, to remove the municipal offenders from the jail.
I have a question. These people that are going to be serviced on this program, are they going to be free to walk the street with this ankle monitor and stuff like that?
Yes, sir. So. Okay. And some of them, if they're on the lower part of the scale, so they don't have as meaty of a criminal history, they're not as much of a flight risk, some of that, they may not even be staying there at night, or they may not have the ankle monitor. So they really are going to use those tiers to match it to what the needs are for that defendant.
You also mentioned the Medicaid part of the program. In what capacity is this going to, you mean they're going to have access to the hospital, to clinic, to emergency services?
Well, they can do all of that on their own,
okay.
Because they're going to be out during the day, so that won't right. be on us.
What about the Methadone Program? Are they going to have anything to do with the Methadone Program?
If they are eligible for it and they can either pay for it or they're eligible for Medicaid, absolutely. That's probably the biggest part of this, is in jail right now, they can't get that. Through this system, they're going to be able to get that.
Well, I'm a proponent against drugs. And it sounds like a great program. If they're going to get the help that this says they will, I'm for it, because we do need to curb the drug problem in our community. It's really rampant right now. And the jail is full, and I understand a lot of these flight risk people and all that. I hope they can monitor them more than the other people. But I think it's a great program, if it's really going to help curb the drug situation that we have in the community, I think it's a good program.
Councillor Stefano, I don't think anybody's going to disagree with you on that. Councillor Hensley?
So I just started to echo it. I do think with the idea, I really respect the fact that as far as our new council members and what the new council will look like, I know when I came on a couple of years ago, one of the things, I think however the council looks when it comes to the beginning of December, we're going to need to do some onboarding. I know onboarding happened to me in the sense of making sure I was aware of all the different things, what's happening at that time and things like that. And so I totally get that we do need to bring them into it. At the same time, I don't think we need to put things on hold till they get here. We've got to keep doing business as business is going, and including them, and definitely, without a doubt, so I definitely support that we need to include them and make sure they're very much part of our council and everything, whatever the decisions are, and not just this, just everything that we're doing and all those important things. So I do respect that, and I do think that's important, and I feel like that would be something that does happen once the new board is on. So,
thank you, Councillor Griego.
Well, I guess since nobody feels like having a work session, we might as well go into this contract, and if we could stay here for another 2 or 3 hours, because I have a lot of questions on this, you know, and if you go on to your contract and look at Exhibit A, service proposals, they've got a set of 4 tiers, Tier 1, 2, 3, and 4, and each of them kind of gives you a menu of that tier. Does that mean the city's going to enter into a contract for Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, or Tier 4?
The contract is for all of them.
Okay.
So if there's
How does that work? Explain that to me, please.
Okay. So if there is a client that is an extreme flight risk, has probably a significant criminal record, and or has some needs that need some severe intervention, they're probably going to be at the Tier 1 full wraparound service. So there's going to be more intensive checking in, there's going to be more intensive monitoring, it's the checking in at night, it's the ankle monitoring, so it's the very, very intensive. And then you just scale down to then the lowest one where they're not as much of a flight risk, and so that is determined by ATC, the intake. So it's the criminal history, it's their evaluation, because our staff doesn't meet with these people to necessarily know from a case management perspective what interventions they need. So they're going to determine where those need to apply. Clearly, from a city perspective, we're going to monitor that, make sure we're not all getting in Tier 1. And if we start seeing those kinds of trends, we'll have conversations with the provider. They're probably going to have some guidance that here's what we do to put in Tier 1, here's what we do. Okay. And if we think that needs to be adjusted, we'd have those conversations. But this contract is to allow for all the tiers. And so the important part is to know the most expensive is $55 a day, and that includes the overnight, the ankle monitoring, and then all those other types of wraparound connections, compared to the $63 a day that we have right now with none of that.
Another question on insurance. You know, they're going to provide an insurance where if one client gets hurt in some way, they will cover that, and it won't come back on the city, since we're the ones paying for that client to be in that facility? How does that work?
That is correct, Eric. The insurance
Because nowadays people are getting sued left and right, and I don't want not to have the proper coverage where somebody sues because somebody slipped and fell down or did some kind of, and it comes back on the city.
Okay. I believe the city attorney is scrolling to the insurance section on the contract.
Right. Paragraph 12 of the contract provides that
I believe it's at $2 million.
It's $2 million for the commercial general liability, $1 million for automobiles, and the contractor then in the following paragraph indemnifies the city.
Okay, so that's enough money there to cover if something does happen.
Well, any claim against a governmental entity is limited by the Colorado Governmental Immunity Act to, don't quote me on the number, it's slightly less than $1 million right now. It keeps changing over time. So that is greater than any liability that could ever be assessed against the city, and is the amount that was recommended by our insurance carriers.
Those are some of the bigger ones I had, you know. And you did answer that the client will pay $15 a day on top of what the city pays, depending on those tiers, right?
I think it's 15 for any of the tiers, but it's a sliding scale on their ability to pay.
Yeah. So,
I have one more question also. We've been talking about the people that don't pay their fines. What effect is this going to have on us recouping some of the money?
That's actually another unique aspect of this contract that I forgot to mention. Part of what we have written in here is that they will try to help on collection of the restitution that's owed either to the city or the victim type of situation. And so that is another unique aspect that we receive through this contract that we do not have available through the jail.
Well, at this time, I think we should authorize the city manager to execute this contract.
I second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, start voting, please. Ms. Hawley?
The motion carried 5-1. With Mayor Lucero casting the no vote and Councillor Daniel abstaining from the vote.
Thank you. We'll move on to selection of art for purchase. Ms. Heather?
Thank you, Mayor. As we're wrapping up the end of 2017, which is amazing, we are also closing out our first run of the art program. And we do have about $5,400 that remains in the line item. And something that we had discussed with council previously was that if we do have funds remaining in the line item, we would like to look at maybe purchasing an art piece so we can begin to add to the collection. And so something that I thought was very interesting is it was amazing to be able to do 17 pieces, and you go from 0 to 17 and it's like, oh my gosh. But when you go downtown and you walk it, they're fairly spread out. And so for me, it very much was a reminder that we have a ways to go with our public art. And so this is one way that if maybe once a year we try to buy a piece, we can build that up and really have a dramatic impact. And so as you did tonight, you awarded the People's Choice, and that was for your Johanna Mai. That piece is actually, though, $21,600. And so the art committee thought that council, you know, while it's exciting to maybe let's buy the People's Choice, that maybe was a little more than what council wanted to spend. And so the art committee said, well, let's take a look at the pieces that are below the $8,000 amount and vote on that. So the next little piece of guidance that you can take for whatever it is the art committee voted on those pieces, and the one they selected was El Pastor by Herberto Mestis, who is local. His piece is listed at $7,500. However, part of the agreement that we do have with the artist is that if someone else was buying the art, we would get a 20% commission. Obviously, we're not going to give ourselves a 20% commission, so we would just discount that. So that would then actually be $6,000. However, you don't need to go with either one of those. If you had another piece that really struck your fancy, if you wanted to pick two of the lower priced ones and do two for almost the same amount. So it really is council's prerogative, and but we thought we'd try to give you some direction too if you wanted some input.
I had a question. when we buy something, does it stay in that location, or do we bring it into City Hall, or what happens to it?
I think it's probably dependent on the art piece. So for example, the one that is Nature's Invitation by Josh Jarrett. It's number 13. And we had technical difficulties. That's why we're all on laptops and I can't put the pictures up, so I'm sorry. Number 13, if you look at that location for that one, I don't think that's where I would keep it because I think it fades. So I think I would put it somewhere else. If you look at the wind chime ones, which are the ones that are the musical instrument, number 4, Touching Sound, I think that's an amazing location for that piece. So I think if that was the one you guys were to pick, I'd recommend leaving it there. So I think there's some that we did an amazing job on their location, and others that maybe either downtown, but council can decide to move it in another place in town.
So the artwork in these locations, are they going to stay there until next year's, or do the artists take them back? How does that work?
I need to give you a better time frame. When we first did this, it was, I believe, during the summer that we did the install, so then they were going to uninstall around the same time next year in 2018. But we decided we wanted to move it to September, and so some of the artists are okay with that, and some of them may still need to pick them up their original point in time, which of course we're going to honor. So some of the pieces will stay until the August, September timeframe, and some of them will have to leave a little bit earlier because of the previous commitments.
Very good. Councillor Riego?
I had a question. If we were to take the recommendation of the art committee, we're shy $600. Where would that come from?
I think we're going to have savings either in the non-departmental budget itself or a couple thousand from the fund balance.
Because they're all good, like you said, and what I like about El Pastor is the fact that the gentleman himself was kind of creative in helping put this whole program together. He was, in fact, he's the one that came to me and said, hey, why don't you guys start doing something like this, and so I personally, I like that piece there, and I would recommend, to council to see if we could find another $600 that can do something with that, with the recommendation of the art committee.
Right. Councillor Hensley?
Councillor Griego, I really agree with you, and it's interesting because, and I shouldn't say vaguely, I remember when we had the presentation at the railroad station, and I believe you got up and said something along those lines about how, am I correct in remember this, and how long you've been working together and this idea, and so I do think it's appropriate, especially since it was the one that was voted by the art committee, but so much history there. And I just always remember that some of those things that you said on that day. And so I agree with you.
And just a little bit more background. He has been a critical member, so not only from the initiation of it, but he has volunteered on the art committee. He's rolled his sleeves up. The day of the install, he was there to greet all of the artists, which was good because Jolene's amazing, but sometimes the artists have their own talk. So it was great for him to be there, and he's been an amazing addition.
Just one little comment. I kind of planted the seed, but the work goes, the credit goes to our city manager who took the ball and put all these people together. It's a lot of hard work, to put it together and to put together something that is going to happen annually, and almost like another event that will bring a lot of people into our community. So like I said, I just planted the seed, and she took and watered it, and it bloomed really nice.
Councillor Reveal?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to add on to why I think we should also choose El Pastor is, and I don't know why Mr. Mestis did this sculpture, but I do know that in northern New Mexico and southern Colorado, the old-time Spanish families ran sheep and still run sheep in the hills, the Sangres and the San Juans down there, and they've been doing it for generations. So I think this is a great way to honor those folks who have been here for hundreds of years.
That's exactly what this is based on. And so from a cultural perspective, it's a Pueblo. That's exactly what he based it.
Councillor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. So I love El Pastor, and I know Huberto, and I think it's fantastic, and his work is wonderful, and I think the city owning a piece would be fantastic. I would just also like to potentially present that Longhorn by Amias Mestes. He is a young artist, and this is the very beginning of his what is sure to be a long career, and I just would like council to consider maybe, not both, we can't afford both, but like consider looking at Amias's Longhorn as well for very similar reasons why we would look at Huberto's.
And Amias is his grandson, and he's also a superstar in his own right because I believe he's 13 or 14, and at the Boys and Girls Club fundraiser, he donated some pieces, and it's really helped the Boys and Girls Club, and I think he's going to be instrumental in helping the Boys and Girls Club kind of start up their own art display program as well.
Okay, Councillor Stefano.
I also think this is a great one, Al Pastor, because it goes with our culture here, and I agree with Mr. Reveal about the sheep herders and all that. There's still a lot of that going on in our outskirts of our community, and I like it better if it sat in my front yard.
Councillor Hensley?
I was curious, have there been any interest on any of these selling or anything like that? Or is it still one of the, I just don't know how this works, or does it wait till it's getting closer to when it's done?
I thought we had a few potential leads. I tried to set up a little bidding war, but that didn't work out. So we had some potential leads, but so far it doesn't seem to be panning out.
And then another question, and I may be totally asking something that's potentially disrespectful, so if I do, I apologize. Again, I'm just not familiar with this. Are we able to negotiate at all?
I would not recommend that. We can always go and ask.
No, and that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I didn't know if that was an appropriate thing or not.
I think since we're developing the relationship with the artists and we want them to continue this year after year, if it was a business owner that maybe wanted to see if they could, they're not having to develop the same relationship. So we can, and I don't think it would be terrible, but I want them to have a positive thought that if they could choose to go here or somewhere else, that they would choose us.
Thank you for the guidance. Thank you.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to take this time to thank Councillor Griego for planting that seed and Heather for running with it, because so many people across our community have really complimented all the artwork downtown. And I know Councillor Griego is modest and humble. He doesn't want to take a lot of credit for it and things like that. But this is one of those things he really needs a pat on the back, because he really took this information and then shared it and made sure that we followed through on something. And look at how beautiful downtown is with all the artwork. And it's going to be something, Councillor Griego, a seed that you planted that's going to continue to blossom every year and after year. So I want to thank you for that very much. And I too like that piece because of the cultural heritage and the community and being local and all of that as well. So I think that would be a great piece if we decided to spend the money to go that direction.
Very good. And I totally agree as well. Councillor Coleman, I don't think I could have said it better about Charlie and his involvement, as well as the involvement of staff. The downtown looks great. And it's going to continue to do so with pieces like this, and purchasing of pieces like this, I think, will just enhance even more our ability to contribute to the artists, that put out this fabulous work. And so with that, I'll entertain a motion. Councillor Reveal.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we go ahead.
No, go ahead.
This is your deal. Go ahead, Mr. Griego.
No, that's good.
Councillor Griego, Councillor Reveal has given up the floor.
Okay.
It's your floor, Councillor Griego.
I'll make the motion that we go ahead and purchase the El Pastor from Alberto Mestas in the amount of $6,000.
Councillor Reveal.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second.
Before council votes as well, I would recommend we keep it downtown. Are you really wanting it at that location, or are you okay if we work with the artist to see if there's a better downtown location?
Continue working with the committee, what their suggestions are.
Okay.
They're the ones that pretty much want to move and stuff.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so, all right. I've got a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, start voting, please. Ms. Hawley?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. We'll move on to committee reports. Who has a committee report?
I do.
Councillor Daniel.
Thank you. I do. I went to the marketing board, so let me pull up my notes. I apologize. They did some work on their financials. They're up about 16,000 for the time period. They believe that they're doing some work as to where some of the marketing district money is down, and so they're checking into that, but they think it's about taxes. They're not concerned. This has happened in the past. They supported also events not on their agenda to have some of the budget differences than what they were, but it's been fine. It was like the Ride the Rockies, the bicycle tour, they redeveloped their website. All of the variances that they've had to the budget have been board approved prior to those variances. So that was a really, I think, a positive update. The update from ACID was that the Oktoberfest went well. It made a little bit of money. The I always forget what the A stands for, but the unmanned aircraft is moving a little slowly, but they're trying really hard to get it going. The power zone conversation, they make equipment that harvests hemp, and we've heard about them around here. They are going to put up a proposal about the motorway and what they want to do with the motorway. It's not quite ready to go, all the way out, but they have a good plan, and they're going to bring it back to their board before it becomes public, and they're working together. Matt Abbey is taking the lead on that. They welcomed their new board member, which was Liz Hensley. They appointed Danielle as the treasurer, and I'm sorry, I don't know Danielle's last name, but Danielle, who's a member of the board, is now the treasurer. And then they spent a lot of time on their budget, which I think was really well, and they wanted to make sure that they're planning their revenues appropriately. They want to be conservative, but realistic and optimistic as much as they can be. So they'll finalize that budget to take it to the county. I think it was to the county this past week. Really just lots of good things going. They have international tours called Familiarization Tours, and I didn't know this, but people from all over the world come to Alamosa and come to check us out to get familiar with our environment and to help people make worldwide trips through Alamosa. And so that is one of the things that they assist with, and it was really, really neat. And so there are going to be different ways Alamosa and the San Luis Valley and the Great Sand Dunes are advertised throughout the world in the next 6 months. And so that's wonderful. We also received great feedback about our barbecue. The Beat the Heat barbecue, we won the second organizer award in 5 out of 5 states. We got the second one overall, so that was great. They have been approved to run that again August 3rd and 4th, so mark your calendars now. And their goal is to have 40 cookers for that. They will have Santa at the depot again this year. There will be Small Business Saturday things coming up, and then 4 new consignment artists being a part of that. And then they did talk about their executive director search, but they did that in executive session. So that is the update from the marketing board.
Thank you. Councillor Daniel, Councillor Reveal.
Yeah, just a quick update on the HPAC. You probably got an email about a member, and Holly or Pat, please correct it if I'm saying this the wrong way, but basically Mr. Ralph Simbling was very busy with work and that, and he wanted to step off the board, but I don't believe he ever submitted a formal letter of resignation. And over the last few months, or last month or week, whatever, he wants to come back on. and there was a little bit of discussion among the board about that process, and we got that cleared up. Thank you to Holly and Pat for doing that. So Mr. Simbling can come back on without having to go through us or submitting a letter, and he could just get back on there. Did I say that right, Holly? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hensley.
So mine isn't actually a committee report. It's the potential of bringing another committee. So I don't know if I said that right. So Dusty has actually approached me, and they have now put the airport advisory board together, and he would like to see if the city would put somebody on that board as well. So just more letting you know that they would like to have city representation, and it is now an advisory board, and they've just started up again. So potentially there was, and it may be something, maybe one of the new people, but that idea of they would like some representation from the city.
So on our December 6th, I was actually going to have as an agenda item those committees that, because of the change in faces, we may need to have just a temporary discussion until the January retreat. So I can add that. Is it something that this person needs to apply to be appointed, or is it the same where council talks about it, decides who wants to be the representative?
Yes.
The second? Okay.
The second. So he just asked, he said he would really like it if we had somebody that was there as well.
Okay.
And it really, and I'll verify that, but he really made it seem like it was set up like how it was before.
Okay.
And especially now since it's more of an advisory type board.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll add that to that list for the December 6th agenda.
Perfect. Thank you.
Is this an elected position that they're asking for?
Elected in the sense of one of us?
Yes.
Yeah, so the way he made it seem is he wanted a city council. But at the same time, they may have some openings. So again, for anybody who wants to apply, so you could definitely, anybody could check into that. I didn't ask him more details, but I do think he wanted more of that city, just having somebody that's from the city council to be on that.
Okay. Thank you. Any other committee reports? Move on to staff announcements. Ms. Heather.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few updates. November 2nd, Councilman Daniel and I had the privilege of attending the Community Resource Center. They hosted a two-day conference on the opioid crisis in the San Luis Valley. We were also privileged to sit on a panel to discuss from different perspectives what we see as the impact on our communities. I think this is something that obviously is growing. I think it's something as a city we need to have discussions on what our role is and is not, but how we can better facilitate some of the community discussions that need to happen. We don't want to reinvent the wheel of some of the efforts that are already underway, but are there things we can do that make sense to create discussions, bring people together, bring attention to some of the needs in the community on this? And so I think coming over the next few months, either through a work session or some other method, we're going to need to start having these discussions and brainstorming on this topic. I did share with the group that as the city, this is somewhat of a new area for us. We're not the county that has the health department. For us, you know, we do water and sewer and streets and parks and rec and police and fire. I mean, we don't have necessarily the expertise on dealing with this, but at the same time we have the community leadership platform, and so that's something that I would see really becoming an item for council discussion moving into the future that is critical for this community. I met last week with Ashley Valdez with Excel Energy. And I think we're right on the cusp of getting the official permission to paint the utility boxes. Because of all of you guys meeting with them at CML and just how much they appreciate working with us, we are the one small community that was picked to be the pilot program, and then Greeley is the larger community that was picked. So that's all that they've picked for a pilot program. And then as we discussed, we'll kind of run this through the art committee and make sure sure we've got some parameters set up and those types of things. But they're very excited, and in fact, the reason Ashley was in town was partly to drive around and look at where the boxes are and all of that kind of stuff. So that is exciting that that's moving forward. You might have seen some recent media on the hemp symposium and some of that, and it actually is really exciting and very, very positive. It somewhat stems, at least from an ASU effort, under the value-added agriculture partnership that they're working on. And so I am coordinating with Dr. McClure on maybe within the next few months coming and doing a presentation on some of the changes that they are seeing related to value-added ag, which is so exciting, and then a lot more on this hemp as well. And this could be a game changer for the community and for the valley. So that I think they're looking at maybe January or February for a presentation. I attended a meeting yesterday as a member of the Valley's Broadband Committee, the DRG's Broadband Committee. The partner was doing a presentation to BOCES and all of the superintendents related to some of the state funding and programs available for strengthening the broadband infrastructure, deploying more of it, getting it once it's in the school further into the classrooms and those types of things. And so I'm very hopeful that that information will settle with the different school districts, and hopefully we can collaborate and make some improvements in those areas. And so those discussions are going on. Obviously, with the passage of Senate Bill 152, we will be looking for opportunities or opting out of Senate Bill 152, looking for opportunities in how we can partner. I also know that Jim and Pat are going to start brainstorming on how do we make sure people can use the infrastructure that we have, what kind of restrictions, what types of carrots do we need to offer, those types of things. So they are going to be putting their heads together and brainstorming on some items for council to consider. And I think in regards to my list, that might be it. We do have a bit of an update from the city attorney, and then Pat will want to make sure if you have any questions. Also in the newspaper was the research that you guys are probably aware in the valley of the recycling that they're doing and all of that. And so if you had any questions from that, we don't have much to add from the article, but if you had any questions, Pat is here for that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council. I just had a brief update, or more of an FYI, after the vote on the 2 marijuana petitions. Shanna Hobbs, who was one of the movers behind those petitions, inquired what the city's position would be with respect to a shop opening that was just carrying CBD products, which is a hemp, usually anyway, a hemp derivative, non-psychoactive, no THC. And I don't know whether we've gotten back to her, but Holly conveyed that question to me, and my conclusion is we don't have any regulation that would prohibit it. Our regulations on marijuana retail and medical facilities define marijuana specifically to exclude oil from hemp products, and mirroring the state's definition of what constitutes marijuana. So not regulated by the state and not prohibited by us. But just wanted to give you an FYI that that question was being asked.
And also, you know, when we discussed it at our department head meeting, there's really not any concern over that as well. So we don't necessarily recommend that there needs to be. We just want to make sure you're aware of it.
Very good. Councillor Hensley?
I think CBD is already being sold. Okay, so I was just gonna say, I think it's already being sold in.
There are shops that are carrying some, yes, we think so.
So it's one of those things, okay.
Okay, thank you.
You didn't blow the whistle on anybody.
No, I wasn't sure the directions.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is there any questions from the article in regards to the update on the recycling study and anything like that? It was a good article and fairly comprehensive, but Pat's here if you guys have any questions.
Very good. Did that article or did that symposium add any direction as far as you folks are concerned, or is there something of that we may be able to take and use? Pat?
Well, actually, just a little bit of background. About a year ago, the San Luis Valley Ecosystem Council received a Rural Recycling Economic Opportunity Grant from the state of Colorado to essentially evaluate the feasibility of creating a hub and spoke recycling operation in the valley. We have areas of the valley where recycling isn't available, and the state is trying to identify ways to make recycling available to more of the rural areas of the state. So what they did is the Ecosystem Council created they call it a solid waste task force. It included a lot of county commissioners, a lot of city staff from different cities in the valley. I sat on it, and it was tasked with, like I said, identifying the feasibility of a hub and spoke system, but also identifying barriers to entry and all of the other issues that would be involved with that. Those discussions turned to the Ricky Recycling Center as being the hub, with the spokes all coming in. There were many hours of discussion specific to not only what the city of Alamosa's role would be, but what it would not be as well. So, you know, we talked about how the Ricky Center would have to expand, talked about different ways to finance those expansions, things like that. We never closed the door on those expansions. We told them we're always open to those discussions. Anything we can do to help our neighbors, anything we can do to create jobs, we're open for, but we would need to make sure that there was a sustainability aspect to their plan, and that the financial burden for those expansions and those operations weren't just simply passed on to our ratepayers. So they're right now, they've kind of finished up that grant. They hired a consulting company to come up with a plan, kind of a plan of attack. Right now they're looking for some funding to initiate an education phase. They want to do kind of a bottom-up and a top-down approach to education. They want to focus on school children and elected officials. So hopefully they are able to secure some funding for that, and they can keep this train rolling.
Thank you, Pat. Councillor Daniel.
Thank you. So the similarities between school children and elected officials, I'm not going to make a comparison.
I didn't bring that up.
Oh, okay, okay. No, I do have a question. So not related to the recycling, but thank you for that. Well, it kind of is. Do you have a timeline on the green waste pickup stopping?
We had an ordinance that set a hard date for stopping that. The problem we've had the last few years is the weather has been warm enough. I think my first year as director, I shut it off on that hard date by the ordinance, and there were still leaves in the trees, and I had a target on my back. So we've kind of changed things up just a little bit, and we're running that program until I'm giving it a week or two after basically all the leaves are down.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I had another question.
Councillor, we'll also make sure to do some Facebook and social media press announcement, that kind of stuff too.
Thank you. I'm sorry I wasn't looking at that way for your...
No, that's okay. That's okay. I just wanted to make sure we won't just surprise people too.
The thing that we've talked about a couple of times, and I know that the police department had to leave, has there been any more conversations among your department and the chief's department about enforcement around the roundabout? I've gotten more complaints since the last time we talked about people feeling like it's really dangerous and people don't know how to use the roundabout.
I will touch base again with the chief. I think the last time we talked about it, he did send me information on what some of that enforcement, how many stops and some stuff like that. But I'll reiterate to him that it's something we probably need to maintain. I think another individual who had talked to me, who probably also talked to you, is about maybe the placement of some of the signs. And so we're going to take a look at that. We've got a lot of signs out there. And so we just, you know, we need to be careful with what we're doing, and unfortunately, we can do a whole bunch of signs, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to change. So we'll look at doing some more enforcement, and I'll follow up with the chief on that again.
Thank you. I had one last question. I've been noticing a lot of baby deer lately. My husband educated me on not how that happens, but like the cycles of that. So that came out way wrong. I apologize for that. I'm so sorry. Have we heard from the Division of Wildlife about how we're supposed to handle that? Not them having babies, but the...
Not yet. My last communication with them, they were getting ready. The Game Commission was looking at possibly adopting some new tools for cities to use, because it's becoming a problem statewide. And I should probably give him a call. That was a while ago. That was probably 3 or 4 months at least. So I'll get back in touch with him and see where they stand on that and what directions they're going.
Pat, is there lighting at the roundabout yet?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Very good. I will tell you, one of the things we're looking at is, does the pedestrian sign block the yield sign and some stuff like that? And I think we had pressure to put the pedestrian signs up because it was so new and people wanted it. But if you look, we don't normally have pedestrian signs at all of our crosswalks. And so we're going to take a look at it, and we'll determine if we think it's safe to be able to remove that, and if it will help people see the, you know, to merge with the people coming in sign type of thing. So we are trying to take a look at it. The other signs are far enough back that, you know, we hope people will look at them and pay attention, but they're not blocking anything, so we can leave those up. But right in that area. So it's a combination, well, it's an enforcement issue, and we'll continue to look at that.
Yeah. I get quite a few phone calls on the roundabout as well, but you know, I don't know what else we can do with it. It's the east-west traffic is fairly fast, and of course the traffic coming south is in peril many times. But I don't know.
That's why it was put there.
Yeah, I know, but it doesn't seem to be solving anything. I'm not sure what can be done. Anyway, I get a lot of calls as well, and I won't tell you what they all say, but they're very concerned about it. Anyway,
it's interesting because I never get any calls. I haven't gotten a call in 2 years.
And I think the other is, you know, when you look back at why it was put in there, is when it was just a straight road with no stop signs or anything, the rate of speed we were seeing out there was extremely dangerous.
We did 2 separate speed studies. Both showed cars over 100 miles an hour.
So in regards to what it's accomplishing, I think that can speak for itself right there. The other is put a signalized intersection there would have been, how much, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Would have been close to 300,000. We built the roundabout for 32,000, I believe.
Yeah. And would be less.
We would have had perpetual maintenance on the signal.
And be less effective at moving traffic during the peak hours. So I think, while you guys, I know you're still getting calls, I think it's always important to be able to have that, and to be able to provide that information as well. It's not that we thought, hey, here's a place that looks like it'd be great to put a roundabout. It was very intentional, and there's a lot of science behind it.
And I wanted to say, I don't mind the roundabout. I actually don't. I also think there hasn't been the enforcement about people using it correctly. And I think if we can do that and amp that up, I think there will be less people struggling with it. So that was where my question came from.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then with the with the subdivisions growing in that area, there's going to be more and more traffic and more pressure on that roundabout. So I don't know. We'll have to see how that pans out.
It's at about 15% of its design capacity as far as traffic count. So it was designed to handle the extra traffic as that area grows. And then we also have the opportunity, we have the ability to build a right-hand fly lane where you don't even have to enter the roundabout if you're turning right if you're southbound on Maroon and turning west. You'll be able to take that right-hand lane, and that's a pretty simple addition 10 years from now.
Thank you, Pat. And, you know, with the population growing in that area, that might be a viable option maybe sooner than later. Thank you for that. Ms. Heather?
I believe that's all we had from a plan presentation.
Thank you. We'll move on to council comment. Councillor Reveal.
Thank you, Mayor. Two things for you guys is I've been getting, I've been talking to a person who lives on Foster Street, Foster Road, out there by the water tower, and and his neighbors really want that road to be paved. I know it's super early, and there's a lot that we have to go through, and potentially probably an SID and all that stuff, but I just want you guys to know about that. And I've asked this gentleman to call you all to tell you as well. And then also I met a woman named Esmeralda Martinez, and she works for the migrant program at Adams State, and she is getting donations from several businesses and groups and churches in the valley, and they support and fund, they sponsor a migrant family for Christmas time. And I said I'd bring it up to you all. The average donation is like $50 to $100, $150. I thought it'd be a cool idea maybe if the city of Alamosa could fund a migrant family this Christmas to help out the kids. They have nothing, so we'll give the kids some toys, some clothes, and that type of stuff. Just something for you all to think about.
So I don't know if this is the same thing, but we are, I think, on our 4th year of partnering on sponsoring a migrant family for Christmas. There might be 2 programs, though, so I'm not sure if this is the same one, because I know either last year or the year before, with there being 2 programs, we did one from each. But I can have Jolene send you guys that information. We take donations from employees and some cash, but then also there's a list if you want to buy items. And then Jolene and her team go and wrap them and buy them and get it delivered. So if it's okay with you, can I have Jolene send that to council? Okay, and then in regards to the SID, staff is dusting off our memory on how those work and who votes and who doesn't vote. And we obviously, looking at how tight our street budget is, we would probably want to wrap the cost for the election and those types of things for them to have to vote on it and it be financed. So we're taking a look at all of that, and then Pat is pulling together a map that has the property owners, who they are, and those types of things. So we are kind of dusting our memories off, and we'll have information for council on that stuff.
Very good. Councilor Stefano.
I got more of a silly question. I was thinking, we have the city shirts as we're going out, so the councilors that are going out. Is it going to be a problem if we wear these shirts? I have a habit of liking something and I buy more than I should have. Like I got like 15 of them, and I'm just,
I think as long
you can't
as
take the patch off, so.
As long as you're not passing yourself off as an official city person to gain access to something, I don't think we're going to be policing that.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Yeah, I've got quite a few myself. Would it be possible for somebody else to use them? Because, no, yes, maybe I could.
We can always ask them.
Absolutely,
yep.
Because, all right. Councillor Hensley.
I was just going to add real quickly, I know you mentioned the hemp symposium. We just had one on November 10th, and it had a great showing, and it was really neat to be part of it. I am part of a group that I'm heading 2 MBA students who are doing some research, some initial research for the hemp program and the partnership. And I have to tell you, the excitement and the energy is unbelievable. I know my 2 students who went to, they kind of went into this initially going, what the heck are we getting into? And they left it like, oh my gosh, we're excited, and the energy was just awesome. So again, I just wanted, I guess, dovetail on what you had to say, because I do think this is something that's going to take off for our community and could really make a difference. And that energy alone is what really makes that happen.
Well, and it's an industry that if we can be on the forefront of the curve, and it's environmentally friendly, it's better for the water use, and it's primary jobs, and it's for the whole valley, which is another amazing part of it.
Okay. Councillor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say, Mr. Brink, you thanked us earlier, and I want to thank you. You come to these meetings, you support us, and you ask questions, and that means a lot as well. So thank you for your acknowledgement, but thank you for being here. And then I also wanted to say, it's not only junior high girls that go through suicidal thoughts and have suicidal issues, and so I would encourage anyone to use the crisis line if you need it. Talk to someone. Someone is going to listen to you. I know everyone in the room almost is gone, but suicide is a very real thing for people every single day. 1 out of 25, there are 25 people in here, have probably thought about suicide in the last 2 weeks, and so it is really important that we support each other and we talk about suicide, and we recognize that it's real, and we recognize that there are people who can help and people who will listen. And so that's just an important thing, I think, for us all to know. And if you don't have the crisis line stuff, I can send you magnets. I have all kinds of stuff for that.
Thank you. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to thank everyone who participated. Thank you, Mr. Brinks, also for thanking us earlier. And I also would like to thank everyone who participated in the election process, including those who participated from the school district as well, and everyone who had something to do with the different issues that were on the ballot. Thank you, because that's how we make our community and our town great. I also would like to thank the candidates like the Mayor Lucero and Michael, Christina, and David, and also the new Michael and Councilman Vigil as well, for running very professional races, and thank you for your service. It was greatly appreciated in our community. So that's all I want to say. Thank you all.
Very good. We've got a need for 2 executive sessions this evening. We've got an executive session to discuss the confined aquifer water, as well as legal advice from a city attorney. I will entertain a motion for both executive sessions.
Mayor, I move that we move into executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 246402-4A and B to discuss the acquisition of confined aquifer water rights from Cole, Hatchard, and Berkeley's Realty, as well as to receive legal advice from the city attorney concerning the November 2017 para audit report.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the executive sessions? Seeing none, start voting, please. Ms. Hawley?
The motion carried unanimously.
Why don't we take a few minutes, and then we'll move into executive session, about 3-4 minutes. And after our executive sessions, we will move back into regular session, and then no further business will be discussed.